Picture the deck of an aircraft carrier slicing through the Pacific at night. It's December 5th, 1965, aboard the USS Ticonderoga, thousands of miles from any safe harbor. Crews are hustling, engines roar. In a pulse of precision, a Douglas A-4 Skyhawk is being moved across the hangar deck. Locked tight under its belly is a B-43 thermonuclear bomb. 1 megaton yield, live, armed. In the cockpit is Lieutenant Douglas Webster, ready for what should have been a routine mission. But as the aircraft is being transferred from the hangar bay to the elevator, something goes catastrophically wrong. The plane rolls backward, not forward into flight, but backward off the side of the carrier. Onlookers watch in slow-motion horror as the Skyhawk disappears overboard. The carrier jolts. Darkness swallows the jet. Seconds later, a fateful silence. In that moment, both pilot and Nuke vanish beneath 16,000 feet of ocean. No explosion, no rescue, just the roar of waves and the hushed dread of what was lost. Lieutenant Webster, a career Navy man, husband, father, becomes another casualty of the Cold War's most dangerous game. His sacrifice would remain classified for decades. The story of nuclear weapons in the sky begins with August 1945. Two B-29 superfortresses, Enola Gay and Boxcar, changed the world forever. Little Boy and Fat Man weren't just bombs. They were the opening shots of an era where civilization's most terrible weapons would ride the clouds like deadly passengers on the world's most dangerous airline. By 1947, the Strategic Air Command was planning for nuclear-armed bombers to patrol the skies 24/7. The concept was simple: keep nukes airborne, ready to strike. If the Soviets launched first, American bombers would already be in the air, untouchable, carrying retaliation in their bomb bays. It was like maintaining a permanent sword of Damocles, except instead of one sword, we had dozens. And instead of hanging by a thread, they were suspended by the competence of exhausted pilots flying 50-ton aircraft. Enter the Convair B-36 Peacemaker, the first true nuclear bomber. This monster aircraft could carry nuclear weapons farther than any plane before it, though calling it the Peacemaker was like naming a hurricane, gentle breeze. Size came with risk, and on February 13, 1950, that risk materialized when a B-36 was conducting a simulated combat mission and 3 engines caught fire. The crew had no choice but to bail out over the Canadian wilderness. Inside the bomb bay was a Mark IV nuclear weapon, without its plutonium core, thankfully, but still containing 5,000 pounds of conventional explosives and uranium. The crew jettisoned the weapon over Princess Royal Island before ejecting. The bomb detonated conventionally, creating a massive crater, and the Cold War's first broken arrow, military speak for a nuclear weapons accident that doesn't sound quite as terrifying as we lost a nuke. Captain Ted Schreier and his crew survived, but they'd opened a terrifying chapter. Nuclear weapons weren't just dangerous when used as intended. They were dangerous just being moved around like nitroglycerin with a navigation system. By the 1950s, airborne nuclear alert had evolved into Operation Chrome Dome, the most audacious and dangerous military operation in history. B-52 stratofortresses, each carrying multiple hydrogen bombs, would patrol predetermined routes around the clock. At any given moment, there were about a dozen nuclear-armed bombers in the air, ready to deliver Armageddon. It was like maintaining a permanent poker game where the stakes were human civilization. The B-52 became the backbone of this aerial nuclear fleet. These 8-engine behemoths could carry 70,000 pounds of nuclear weapons, enough to level entire regions. But keeping 50-ton aircraft airborne for 24-hour missions while loaded with hydrogen bombs was like playing Russian roulette with a gun that could kill everyone on Earth. The planes were refueled mid-air by KC-135 Stratotankers. Picture this: a B-52 Heavy with thermonuclear weapons, extending a probe to connect with a fuel boom while both aircraft hurtle through the sky at 400 miles per hour. One miscalculation, one moment of turbulence, and multiple nuclear weapons could scatter across the landscape like the world's deadliest confetti. The crews who flew these missions were some of the most skilled pilots in the world, but they were also human. They dealt with fatigue, mechanical failures, and the constant psychological pressure of knowing they carried enough firepower to end civilization. It was the ultimate high-stress job. making air traffic control look like a meditation retreat. While bombers grabbed headlines, the real workhorses of nuclear transportation were far more mundane: trucks. The Atomic Energy Commission developed the Nuclear Express, a convoy system that moved nuclear weapons across American highways like the world's most dangerous delivery service. These weren't ordinary trucks. Specially designed tractors pulled armored trailers that could withstand small arms fire and explosives. Each convoy included escort vehicles filled with armed federal agents, and the routes were classified at the highest levels. The drivers knew they were carrying enough plutonium to build dozens of nuclear weapons, but they couldn't tell their families where they were going, the ultimate "don't ask what I did at work today" situation. The trucks moved at night, avoiding major cities when possible, but sometimes nuclear weapons had to travel right through America's heartland. A breakdown on Interstate 40 might mean nuclear materials sitting alongside regular traffic while mechanics worked under armed guard. The public never knew that the unmarked truck in the next lane might be carrying a city killer, making road rage seem like a particularly poor life choice. Railroad networks became another crucial artery. Special armored rail cars could carry multiple nuclear weapons across the continent. The most secretive was the Ghost Train, a specially modified locomotive painted in standard freight colors but carrying enough nuclear weapons to level a dozen cities. The USS George Washington, launched in 1959, was America's first nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarine. She could carry 16 Polaris missiles, each topped with a nuclear warhead, and remain submerged for months. But operating nuclear weapons underwater created unique challenges that made surface operations look like a walk in the park. Submarine crews lived in a steel tube surrounded by both nuclear weapons and a nuclear reactor, hundreds of feet below the surface. The psychological pressure was immense. One mistake could result in a nuclear explosion underwater, which would redefine the phrase, "having a bad day at the office." The men who served on these boats were volunteers, but they knew the risks. The USS Scorpion was lost in 1968 with 99 crew members and 2 nuclear torpedoes aboard. The wreck lies in 11,000 feet of water, and the nuclear weapons remain sealed in the hull. Like the men who served aboard her, those weapons became part of the ocean's dark legacy. The Goldsboro incident of January 24, 1961, remains the closest America has come to accidentally nuking itself. A B-52G carrying 2 Mark 39 hydrogen bombs, each with a yield of 3.8 megatons, making them 260 times more powerful than Hiroshima, broke apart over North Carolina during a Chrome Dome mission. Major Walter Tulloch and his crew were conducting a routine nuclear alert when the plane developed a fuel leak. As they attempted an emergency landing, the aircraft went into an uncontrolled spin. Tulloch ordered his crew to bail out, but not all made it. The plane broke apart at 10,000 feet, scattering nuclear weapons across the North Carolina countryside. One bomb deployed its parachute and landed in a tree, probably giving local wildlife the shock of their lives. The other slammed into a muddy field at 700 miles per hour, burying itself deep in the earth. When specialists examined the intact bomb, they discovered that 5 of 6 safety devices had failed. Only a single switch prevented a nuclear explosion that would have killed hundreds of thousands. The buried bomb was never fully recovered. The military bought the land and posted guards, but the uranium core remains buried beneath a North Carolina field, the most expensive lawn ornament in history. Major Tulloch and several crew members died in the accident, their sacrifice preventing what could have been America's worst nuclear disaster. On January 17, 1966, a B-52G carrying 4 hydrogen bombs collided with a KC-135 tanker during refueling over Palomares, Spain. Both aircraft were destroyed, killing 7 of 11 crew members in what must have been the most expensive traffic accident in aviation history. The collision scattered 4 nuclear weapons across the Spanish countryside. 2 bombs hit land and their conventional explosives detonated, contaminating farmland with plutonium and making the phrase "toxic waste" suddenly very literal. A third was recovered intact. The fourth fell into the Mediterranean, beginning the most extensive nuclear search operation in history. The search involved 33 ships and deep-sea submersibles Alvin and Illuminat. For months, Navy crews searched the Mediterranean floor while Spanish authorities evacuated contaminated areas. The human cost was enormous. Entire communities displaced, crops destroyed, and 1,400 tons of radioactive soil shipped to American storage sites. The underwater search finally located the missing bomb in 2,850 feet of water. Recovery took 3 months and nearly ended in disaster when the bomb slipped from the submersible's arm and fell back to the ocean floor. The crews risked their lives in crushing depths to recover the weapon, proving that even nuclear weapons can be difficult to handle when they're having a bad day. The final major transport incident occurred on January 21, 1968, when a B-52G carrying 4 nuclear weapons crashed into sea ice near Thule Air Base in Greenland. The aircraft was on a chrome dome mission when an electrical fire broke out. The crew fought the fire for hours before being forced to abandon the aircraft. 6 crew members bailed out before the burning bomber crashed. The conventional explosives in all 4 nuclear weapons detonated, creating a massive fireball that melted the ice and scattered radioactive debris across the frozen landscape. The cleanup operation lasted months and involved hundreds of personnel working in minus 70 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures, making it the coldest nuclear cleanup in history. Back to that December night in 1965. The Ticonderoga incident stands apart because it involved a fully armed megaton-class thermonuclear bomb. Not a dud, not a training unit. A live warhead lost in deep water, never recovered, currently resting about 80 miles east of Okinawa. Weeks turn into months. The Ticonderoga scrambles sonar, crews search frantically, but in those crushing depths, nothing surfaces. Not plane, not pilot, not bomb. Only Lieutenant Webster's helmet, floating like a ghost flag on the waves, gives a human face to the loss. His family would wait months for confirmation, told only that he was lost in a routine training accident. The U.S. stayed mum about the nuclear component. Public files remained sealed until 1989, when, under mounting pressure, including from Japan, the Navy admitted, yes, they lost a live, armed thermonuclear bomb. Gone. Forever. Filed under mistakes we'd rather not discuss. This isn't fear-mongering, it's Cold War reality. Entire fleets of nuclear-armed aircraft were routine, ready to drop annihilation at a moment's notice. But that exposed a terrifying weakness. Even one slip could send a megaton weapon to the ocean floor. The Pentagon maintains that the United States has experienced 32 broken arrow accidents, with 6 nuclear weapons lost and never recovered. The human cost has been enormous. Dozens of military personnel died in nuclear transport accidents, and hundreds more lived with the psychological burden of handling civilization's most dangerous weapons. What does that mean? It means today and forever there's a thermonuclear weapon chilling on the ocean floor, waiting like a very patient and very dangerous time bomb. We don't know if its casings are corroding. We don't know if a leakage has begun. We don't know what disturbances might rattle open the payload. Why didn't they recover it? Pressure at 16,000 feet is crushing. Literally. Locating it takes time, sonar sweeps, submersible mapping, all while governments fear leaks of capability information. They keep quiet, it's classified, and there's no upside to telling the public there's a ticking nuclear tomb in the abyss. These incidents shaped nuclear policy in ways that continue today. Chrome Dome missions ended after Thule. Nuclear weapons were removed from routine aircraft patrols. But the fundamental challenge remains. Nuclear weapons must be transported, and transportation involves risk. The men and women who died in these accidents weren't just statistics. They were professionals who understood the risks and accepted them because they believed in their mission. Major Tulloch over Goldsboro, Staff Sergeant Snap at Thule, Lieutenant Webster in the Pacific, they all knew that nuclear deterrence required more than just building weapons. It required moving them, maintaining them, and keeping them ready. The psychological toll on nuclear transport personnel is immense. They live with the knowledge that a single mistake could result in catastrophe. The divorce rates among nuclear weapons personnel are higher than almost any other military specialty. Suicide rates are elevated. The burden of nuclear responsibility breaks some of the strongest people, proving that even the mightiest weapons are only as strong as the humans who handle them. The nuclear transport system continues today. The United States maintains approximately 5,400 nuclear weapons, and they still need to be moved between storage sites, maintenance facilities, and deployment locations. Modern nuclear transport relies on the Office of Secure Transportation, which operates specially designed trucks and trains equipped with advanced communication systems, armor plating, and security measures that would make a Secret Service detail jealous. But the human element remains unchanged. Skilled professionals who understand the gravity of their cargo and the consequences of failure. These men and women undergo extensive background checks and regular psychological evaluations. They know that their vigilance is all that stands between routine transport and catastrophe. The technology exists to retrieve lost weapons. The same deep-sea capabilities that located the Titanic could theoretically recover nuclear weapons from the ocean floor. But the political will doesn't exist. The cost would be enormous, the risk significant, and the public relations nightmare potentially worse than leaving them buried. Sometimes the best solution is the one that involves admitting you'd rather not solve the problem. That's the ultimate paradox of nuclear deterrence. It relies on readiness and concealment, but readiness creates real danger. Command and control systems can fail. Redundancies can crack. And when they do, the consequences can be catastrophic. You may sleep peacefully tonight, but remember, below the waves in crushing darkness, there are nuclear ghosts. Ghosts we dropped, lost, and decided to leave alone. Cold, silent, deadly, forever out of sight. And above ground, in trucks and trains and submarines, there are nuclear weapons still being moved by dedicated professionals who understand that their vigilance is all that stands between civilization and a very bad day. The Ticonderoga bomb wasn't some training device or practice round. It was a live, armed thermonuclear weapon, likely resting in the Pacific depths, 16,000 feet down. We left it there. We walked away. And we might never get it back. Lieutenant Douglas Webster died in what should have been a routine operation. But his sacrifice reminds us that in the nuclear age, there are no routine operations, only controlled disasters waiting to happen. That's the nuclear shadow lurking under our seas and in our skies. The price of deterrence paid by the men and women who accept the responsibility of handling civilization's most dangerous weapons. The next time someone claims nukes are safe now, remember Lieutenant Webster, Major Tulloch, Staff Sergeant Snap, and all the others who died in nuclear transport accidents. Ask how many weapons we've lost, because in the end, that's what nuclear transport is really about. Not just moving weapons, but accepting the responsibility and the risk that comes with possessing the power to destroy civilization. The men and women who work in this field are the guardians of humanity's most dangerous creation, and their story deserves to be told with the respect and gravity it demands, even if it occasionally involves admitting that sometimes the most powerful military in history drops things and decides it's probably better to just leave them where they landed. This is Steel Mallard. Like and subscribe because, unlike those missing nukes, we actually want you to find us again.